It's not easy to be busy. It's not easy to say everyone is busy with something and a lot of work is in progress, but does it actually make sense what we do? That's something different. I guarantee you that this is probably the presentation in which you will see the least JIRA tools visible. And I do it on purpose because I want you to get inspired by some techniques. And if you will find, oh, these are the problems that I have, and you will start looking for the tool, then of course I've been invited to come to this conference today by the team developing the tool called Advanced Kanban and Agile Boards, so the team of release management apps. On a daily basis, who the heck is this guy and why is he privileged to talk to us? I work as an accredited consultant and trainer of Kanban method, and I work as a freelance under the brand of Lean Agile Ninja. If you ever want to name your private company, please be careful if the name of your company can be easily spelled at the hotel reception. leanagile.ninja is not the one. So that's maybe one thing for you to already know and take away. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Kanban. Who of you have heard about Kanban? Okay, who of you have seen or used a Kanban board in JIRA? Okay, so you're in the right track. And when we ask people how to recognize if they use Kanban, we very often keep hearing things like, there's a board. Okay, that's one of the meaning of Kanban, for sure. There are no sprints. Okay, I'm not going to talk about motivation to do Kanban. Maybe that's a good one. There are no meetings. Okay, maybe. Very, very low, and on this type of list, we start hearing about managing flow. And managing flow is something I want to talk about today. If we really understand that Kanban is more than a board, and it's not just a board as it is in let's just say, default setup in JIRA, we definitely say we would like to see the work. So visualization is important. We would like to limit of how much we have in progress, and it's something I would say counterintuitive because we don't like word limit. It's like limit on speed limit or credit card limit. Yeah, we have usually bad connotations to limits. We would like to actively manage flow. So we don't want work just move slowly, but we want to actively manage flow. And what is necessary to actively manage flow is to have clear rules. How do we do it? And I will start with first challenge. So when I come to many companies, many teams, and I look at their Kanban boards, what I see is something like in here. So we have columns like dev for development and CR for code review and maybe for tests. And sometimes we even see that the tickets are moving. That's good. But this is not reflecting reality. Why? Because usually, if we have multiple people contributing to work, so you write the code and I review the code and you test this code, it may happen that if you have finished your activity, so you feel like you're done with code review, there is no point in pushing this task to a column called test because I, as a tester, may be busy with something else. And then we have a picture which doesn't show reality. So we say the good practice of Kanban is to introduce something that we call passive states. Passive states like awaiting code review, to make it explicit that one activity is done and the other has not yet started, right? But then there's a problem. Okay, how do we do it in JIRA? We keep hearing people like, oh, I cannot add more columns because the board is going to be so wide that it's not going to match the screen size. And then everyone in my team asks for the gaming monitors, which are wide and curved, all those silly things. Well, we say it makes sense to build one end-to-end workflow because it's going to be much easier to measure the flow, if you want to measure anything. And today we had few slots about using data for decision-making. You don't want to have it on separate boards, and you don't want to have it in separate projects. It should be one workflow, which is maybe long, but somehow shows the reality that we have multiple active and passive states. when we say that we have a one workflow and one long board, of course it may trigger questions, good reflections, like maybe I'm not interested in certain columns, maybe I should focus on my columns, the columns where I contribute or participate in this task. Fair enough. And then we say, okay, how do we do it? Unfortunately, JIRA per, let's just say, default setup doesn't have these options. And the tool that I'm referring to you today has these options that you can have multiple columns, but you can hide these columns. This is, of course, a static picture, right? But you can imagine that I can hide all these columns or collapse all these development and test and go columns. So I can have a very long workflow like the one that you see here, but it's still manageable to see it in one board without reloading the board, which takes some time. It can have saved views. So if I say I'm interested in development, I will always start looking at my boards, but without reloading, I can unhide it, uncollapse it, and see other activities. That's just the beginning, because if we start seeing, these are just different views, how much of work we have, then the second practice of Kanban says focus on finishing, or stop starting, start finishing. It doesn't make the difference how much you start, it actually makes the difference how much you finish, how much you deliver, right? And if we do it, we see very many inefficiencies. One of the inefficiency is that we have multiple tasks assigned to one person. So professionals like developers, managers, they behave like my 6-year-old son who grabs all the Legos to him. Yeah, these are all my tasks. I don't have time to do them, but I will grab them. I will assign them to myself, right? That's one thing. Then the other thing is like everyone cares about only what they do. So I produced so many tasks for code review, or we produced so many tasks for testing, and I don't care that, you know, this is a big inefficiency, because if there's no capacity to test or review these things, they will never end up on production, right? And the third one is that if we look at how many different contexts we have on the board, we see that we are like constantly juggling with multiple epics, projects, whatever is the granularity of the work that you talk about, right? And we very often, unfortunately, I'll be open with criticism of what we see sometimes by default in JIRA, filters per person, right? I see many teams who are having the boards and they filter per person. Now we see Radek's tasks and, you know, all eyes on me. I can show how busy I am, and all other work just disappeared, yeah? And then we switch to Philip and we see Philip's tasks and everything else disappears, right? That's not the way to go. So what's better is to have a tool which shows you that some people are having too much and some people don't enough. This is an example. Here we have Spock, the character from Star Trek. He should have maximum 1 and minimum 1, but he has 2. Oh, Mr. Spock, you're multitasking. Yeah? We already have a visual cue to say, no, even with three screens and 2 keyboards, you are not writing 2 tasks at the same time. That's not reality. Yeah? If we go deeper and we'll understand that the whole process of development, maybe code review and waiting for code review is in hand of just a group of people, then we need to understand that they should be accountable for the flow of tasks across these columns. And again, unfortunately, by default in JIRA, the only way of limiting work in progress is per column. But what about limiting bunch of columns? Yeah? Don't focus on just, you know, screwing the screw. Focus on also checking if the other colleague has screwed the screw correctly, if he or she wrote the code correctly. And this is a solution which allows us to say, okay, if we have already exceeded the number of tasks in here, and we already reached the limit per this part of the process, this is a natural guidance that instead of starting yet another ticket, I should finish something, maybe review or test or deploy something that someone else did before. So this is this trigger, this visual cue, which allows us to understand that finishing is a bigger benefit for all of us, not just my flow way of understanding my personal productivity. This is not about personal productivity if we talk about teams. And as you can see in this tool, we can see that, for example, some areas are having too few tasks and some areas are having too many tasks, right? Just like red and yellow, like the default color coding, but you can change it in the tool and easily see it. Now, sometimes I keep hearing that, well, we tried Scrum, we tried Agile, we tried whatever. The problem that we have is we need to juggle few streams of work. Even today, I already talked to a few people who said, well, we drive the operations, we drive the support, but on top of that, but in parallel to this, we have the new development of our own systems. Yeah, that's a typical thing that happens in the industry. So in this case, we should not only focus on limiting per person or limiting per column, but also visualizing and limiting this per swim lane. And the swim lane can be, for example, different streams of work. So I could have reactive operations in one swim lane, one row, and I could have a different part of work in the other. And now it is important to say, well, we don't want to neglect any of these streams. That's why what is important is to say, well, we should always have at least some tasks or not more than some number of tasks in this part of the board. And again, it's not doable just like with a default board. So we need to look for options and take a look at this. Even if you cannot read Polish well, you can see that you have some tickets here. And this is in yellow because probably we have too few tasks related to this epic or topic or project. And with others, which are hidden or not, the situation is under control. So if you are in a Scrum Master position, manager position, team leader, you would like to know into which stream of work your team members are basically investing their time. And this is perfectly scalable also to C-level. We can build a portfolio Kanban board like this, and we can see, oh, we've started 3 projects for customer A, and customer B is calling our account manager all the time because no job is done for them. Yeah? How to find it, how to easily find it visually. Moving forward, we say in Kanban it's important to have clear rules. One of the rules that I would say empowers team to data-driven decision-making, we heard about it today, is like, if I'm done with one task, let's imagine that I finish development of this task and I move it for awaiting CR, I find myself in a situation where I can pull from multiple tasks awaiting for me to do. How do you decide what to pull next? Any ideas? Priority, what else? Okay, maybe skill, yeah, we don't know. In Kanban, we say this should be clear, this should be explicit. Yeah? And I'll give you a few examples. So in JIRA by default, we can show dots. What these dots show to you? The age of what? Yeah, of that task in that column. We're going to talk about it. Yeah, so for how many days these tickets are basically waiting in this column, right? If I see the situation, then one ticket is relatively new, one ticket is relatively old. Maybe I will pull the oldest one first. That's a good policy. But what if we have a situation like this, that we have 1 urgent tickets and 2 aging tickets which are not urgent? What would you pull first? Urgent first, okay, and then? The older, yeah, okay, makes sense. What if I tell you that the 4th ticket is the last missing part of a big portion of work to be delivered? How does it change your decision algorithm? You see, reality is more tricky than we think. So think of it this way, that we very often have people spread across the world in different time zones, looking more or less at the same board. We wish they are looking at the same board, and they need to, independently from the fact that the product owner is sleeping now, do the right decision. And if they don't have the visual help, if they don't have clear rules, without bad intentions, they will take the wrong decision. This is what happens every day. And think of it this way. What we call in Kanban a pull policy is some kind of guidance what we should next if there are few tasks waiting for me and they match my skills so I could actually pull them. Yeah? This shouldn't be random. And if you see, we can add in this tool a very simple visual cue, so I can hover my mouse over it and I can have easily editable let's just say guidance. If there's a critical error, take it first. If you can finish ongoing epic, do it next. If there is an oldest on the board, not only in the column, we're going to talk about it in a moment, maybe this is the next thing that you should do. And again, we say rules are helpful if they are accurate, if they are easily understood, and if they are easily updated. Because if you have your rules, what to pull next, and it's hidden in the PDF on the Confluence, sorry, folks, yeah? No one's going to read it. Let's move forward. And there's a question. Could tickets go backward in Kanban? Yes, no? There are usually two fractions. They should. Well, I don't know. But if they come back, it should be of my interest, yeah? Because something went wrong for the first time. And this is important message, right? So think of it this way. If I see these 4 tickets and the only factor that I have is the age in column, and you were right, this is what JIRA shows by default, I could say, I should probably take the oldest one. I heard a suggestion like this from this side of the room. And this fresh one looks okay. But what if this fresh one is here for the 3rd time? Okay? So if I have a visualization like this, that I have fresh, but for the 3rd time, and then getting older, but also already once reverted, right? This could influence my decision process. And this is really important. Again, we could have a visualization how many times this card has returned to this column. Yeah? Easily visible on the board, on the exact ticket. Yeah? Without opening the tickets, we know that sometimes it takes a long. Yeah? We don't want to do it. Now, I already highlighted a few times that by default, JIRA offers us this visibility of how many days the ticket spent in the column. But it could be really, let's just say, misleading metric. Why? Take a look at this. We can have a ticket which is here for 2 days, and I could decide that I will pull it next, but in the whole system, from the moment it's been started, it's in the system only 6 days. On the other hand, I have this ticket looking fresh, which is in the system 16 days. And again, if I have SLA, if I have a fixed date promised, if I have customer awaiting, if I want to build predictability, I heard predictability is really popular word lately, well, I should have easily available data to do it, okay? And this is it. This is it that we want to have visual information available, and if you find yourself saying, I don't see the whole workflow, I don't see how much of work is distributed per person. I don't see how old is this ticket locally or globally. If I see people taking incorrect decision based on, well, maybe misunderstood pull policy, then these are the Kanban practices that you should include in your team. And it doesn't matter if it's at team level, if it's portfolio level, and it doesn't matter if you work in Scrum, Safe, or whatever you call your flavor of ways of working. If you're interested in it, I would like you to point you to a few sources. One of the sources is the method. So all the things that I just described is called Kanban method, and there's official guide to Kanban method. I checked last night, it's in 16 languages, and it's not in Romanian. Just looking at you, there's a homework to do. I don't speak Romanian, but I could help you. And yeah, if you're interested in topics like this, get in touch with me. Don't be afraid. This is not a phishing attempt. This is my LinkedIn profile. And if you're interested in the tool, we have our stand together with Philip. Philip, stand up. Yay. So if you didn't find a reason to come to us so far, maybe that's the moment to come. We are still today. Maybe you want to look at the tool, right? Because I know from my experience as a consultant and trainer that we very often have a lack of awareness that I would like to do these practices, that my people don't have this information. And then when we do the workshop, when we do the training, people say, how do I do it in JIRA, right? And again, many of us are in here because we know that you can add many helpful techniques, many helpful tools to do it. And I believe we need a little bit of both. So the method, like why we do it, what do we want to accomplish, and also tool which is supporting it. That's it. Thank you very much. If you have questions, shoot. Maybe that's the moment to.
Let's hear them out. Yeah.
Okay.
You are showing like us how to group different columns under like a hierarchy, right? What is the benefit of having like this rather than just going into, I don't know, into your roles and swim lanes in the out-of-the-box solution and then just grouping like, I don't know, 3-4 statuses under the same one?
Oh, okay. That's a good question. So I'll answer with my experience, right? I very often I'll roll it back because we have few minutes, so we can actually use it. So I was once called for a help, and actually they had a board when they even didn't have dev and CR or test, they had in progress. And one of the managers told me, Radek, you need to come and help because they have a daily, and daily takes 40 minutes. I said, okay, let's look into it, yeah? That was pre-COVID, that we had 8 people in the office, and they were coming every day to the board, which was displayed on a big screen, and they were actually looking for the information, meaning, okay, is it development done but before code review, or is it waiting for code review, or had it code review and everything went okay, or had it code review and had some remarks, and were the remarks applied, etc. So we say by hiding multiple status in one column, we basically lose some kind of information, yeah? And then, of course, you are right, I could open every ticket and find it in the history, in transitions tab or whatever, but question, is this the right thing that we want to spend our people on? Clarity of the workflow, clarity of the fact that, you know, one activity is done and the other is not started is really powerful if you, for example, suffer in your teams that tickets are aging, so they take too long, right? Additionally, take a look at this, that if you have active and passive statuses, you can start tracking the aging in each column separately, right? So we don't push it to CR and then we say, oh, CR took 4 days. No, probably CR is going to take hours, if not minutes. Days have been spent on waiting for code review. And this is what shows you where you have problems. Yeah? So I would say be very cautious, because if you put everything into fewer columns than reality actually looks like, then some kind of useful information is going to evaporate, and then you're going to spend extra effort trying to find it. Does it answer your question? Okay, thank you very much. I saw one hand up there.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Daryl. I'm from Atlassian. First of all, that was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And being as a very, very enthusiastic for these kind of things, I'm wondering that in your career, have you seen any successful ceremonies coming to the play to make this kind of process more tangible and more applicable? And if you can name 3 of the ceremonies, that would be appreciated.
Okay. So you said you're from Atlassian, so you need to be cautious, right? I will tell you why. Because one of the latest things that you added is like this gadget or widget for running dailies, where we like measure how long people speak. It's a great visual help, because daily, as a meeting, as an event, you call it ceremony, is not a place, an opportunity to explain how busy you are, right? In Kanban, we say, if we have a well-designed board, the good technique is to go the board from right to left and not per person, by per task. The message is clear. What is going on with this work item or task? Yeah? Because all these ceremonies are basically serving the purpose of making work flow, not listening that people are busy and, oh, I've been in so many meetings, yada, yada, yada. Yeah? I would say it's not easy, because it's much easier to say what I've done today, what I'm going to say today, and then basically check out and start browsing my smartphone. So it requires a discipline, and it requires some period to build habits. But I've seen teams where I was away for weeks, and they built this habit, and they were going from right to left, because what is on the right is the closest to delivering value, right? And this is interesting because most of us in here are basically taught reading or writing from left to right. So when we see the board, by default, we look at what's new. Okay, there will be time to take care of the new items, but stop starting, start finishing basically suggests let's start with what's been done, what's closest to being completed, and so on. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. Any
Thank you
other
for the
questions?
question. Thanks, Radek. One question from Andrea. Another question from Andrea, just in the front.
Yeah.
Last
Yeah.
question, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Very nice. I want to know what's your opinion about the block status and the column of
How much
block or
time
on
we
hold.
You have
Because I
enough,
saw
30 seconds.
multiple approaches that some of them they decide to make this as an active column or disappear from the board and act it differently. What's your
So
opinion
you already
about
answered
this?
yourself. No, the blocked columns is something that we should take care of, I would say, evolutionary. I know that many teams start with introducing the blocked column. If you have a blocked column, don't keep it on the side of the screen because people won't see it. Keep it in the middle. If you have a blocked column, be cautious enough to track how old the tickets are there, how much time has been spent since last communication with the person who can resolve dependency and so on. My personal recommendation is that it's better to keep the blocked item in the column where it was blocked. Because again, you may have ticket blocked at the analysis phase, and you may have a ticket blocked at development phase. And then if you move them to the blocked column, again, the information evaporates. You don't see easily in what activity it's been blocked. So my personal recommendation is rather create a row, a swim lane for blocked items, and keep them in this swim lane in the column where they were blocked. Of course, it will start making you pain because it will break the WIP limits, but that's something that should encourage you to do something about unblocking. Just a last joke. Unfortunately, the main strategy for resolving blockers is aggressive waiting. So people move it to a status block, they add a flag, and they say, now I'm waiting. Yeah, that's not going to resolve it, no matter if you have a column or swim lane.
A mic drop on that.
Yay!